Just hours after her husband died from ALS, this woman got a call that left her trembling in shock. Upon hearing the words of her doctor, Tessie Sylvester, already reeling from the death of her husband to ALS, hung up the phone in total shock. Just hours after he had passed, since she had said her final goodbyes to her husband and father of her children, she had been left alone as a single parent, and now she had received some more devastating news. John Sylvester had been battling ALS ever since he was first diagnosed with a debilitating illness in 2010. Moreover, even though they'd had time to prepare, the family were still shaken to their core when John eventually passed away in hospital. On the day of his death, John had told his wife that he knew it was his time to die, and hours later, she watched him slip away. However, the grief of his loss had barely been allowed to begin when doctors revealed that Tessie had her own battle to fight. Deciding to hide the news from her children, she subsequently had to face the bleak future alone. Yes, a cruel twist of fate had been dealt to her on that day. Tessie had been speaking to funeral directors about the heart-wrenching details of the ceremony.
And the other line beeped, and it was my doctor.
And as the doctor relayed her news, Tessie's world became even bleaker. Tessie subsequently told CBS. In fact, a cancerous tumor on her liver had been discovered, and the prognosis wasn't good. Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story. Consequently, the future for her already fatherless children now became even more desperate. Confirming the possibility that the cancer could spread to more organs, Tessie learned that her husband's death was not the end of the family's suffering. Concerned about her children, Gus and Freddie consumed her. How would they cope with losing both of their loving parents in such a short space of time? As the children were still unaware of their mom's illness, Tessie decided that the boys should be allowed to deal with their dad's death before she informed them about her condition. John and Tessie's story up until this point had been a beautiful one. The pair had met back in 2002 while coaching a youth soccer team and subsequently married a couple of years later. They then had 2 children together, Gus now 6 and Freddie now 5. The couple were passionate about helping others, but their world was changed forever when John's illness was diagnosed. The Minnesota family had to watch John endure the physical suffering caused by ALS, and his life became increasingly restricted as the condition took hold. Nonetheless, the loving father helped to maintain the family's positive outlook on life, even from his hospital bed. Tessie, in fact, believes that John's death at the age of 44 allowed him to watch over his family as she faced her own battle. In his final years, John had remained strong as his young boys attempted to understand why their daddy was being taken from them.
But I think that John went when he did because he knew that I needed some protection from another place to stay with our boys.
Still, his boys never could understand why medical staff couldn't save their father. Tessie, therefore, knew that learning that their mommy would become sick as their dad would be a terrible blow. Every child deserves a carefree childhood, but theirs had been taken from them. For instance, ALS prevented John from playing with his children like most dads can. During his last day alive, in an emotional conversation with the love of his life, John attempted to assure Tessie that she could get through life without her soulmate.
John and I just crying and praying, and he kept telling me, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay.
Subsequently, despite his family's prayers and tears, John slipped away from Tessie, and she faced a future as a single mom. It was even more heartbreaking then when the shock call confirming that Tessie had cancer came just hours after John's death. It seemed that Tessie's body had deceived her. Indeed, while she was pouring all her energy into her husband's care, she had been unaware of her own physical ailment. Seemingly fit and healthy, Tessie had been focused for 6 full years on her husband and his debilitating illness. But when a routine blood test discovered some abnormal cells, just one phone call later, Tessie realized that her future held even more uncertainty. To make matters even worse, further examinations confirmed that surgery had become an impossibility. Not only had the cancer been diagnosed as an adenocarcinoma, but it also spread to her liver and lymph nodes. The confusion and fear were almost too much for her to bear. Moreover, the 36-year-old didn't even look or feel ill. Nonetheless, doctors confirmed that the cancer had taken hold and that it threatened to deprive her of a future with her children. But although Tessie was understandably distraught, her priority was that the boys should be allowed to grieve their father's passing. In a bid to lessen the shock for her sons, Tessie cut her hair short before she had to lose it completely during treatment for the cancer. Many would have given up, but Tessie vowed to carry on for the sake of Gus and Freddie.
I've been trying really hard just to temper all of it with keeping hope. And, glad that I did go in. I didn't go in for any particular reason other than just a routine physical.
Nevertheless, the single mom once again had to sit down and deliver some heart-wrenching news to her children. On the previous day that she had to bear such bad news, Tessie's husband had been by her side. This time, though, she has to face their fear and questions alone. Still, reflecting some of her husband's eternal positivity, Tessie has refused to give up hope for a bright future. Moreover, her parents and 5 siblings rallied around her as her world was turned upside down. The widow had become the family's breadwinner before John's death, but now Tessie had no idea how she would cope with her illness.
I don't want to say it's not fair yet because I'm not ready to give into it.
Yes, Tessie knew that when treatments began she would be unable to work, and therefore she wouldn't be able to provide her sons with a stable home. She needn't have worried, however, as the community rushed to her aid. A charity page was set up online, and the news about the family's suffering and enduring strength spread. Donations subsequently came flooding in and had soon reached almost $300,000. The death of her husband and the tragic diagnosis that Tessie has experienced could have broken the strongest of people. The uncertainty about her future could have torn a family apart. Nevertheless, thanks to her belief that her late husband is watching over her, Tessie has shown that a family can endure any struggle when it is faced together.